Right, so those of you with a keen sense of visual perception might notice that the quality of this video is slightly lower than my usual. And that's because we're going to do something a little different today. We are going to talk about video quality. This is actually more of a broad topic, it's just video quality is a really good way to introduce it. I've mentioned many times how I think learning the fundamentals is far more important than people realize, and you just need a small amount of information to get a lot out of something. So in this example, we are going to start with a webcam, and this is, in this case, the Logitech Brio. Now, if you're going to get a webcam for doing YouTube type stuff, quite frankly, they're all pretty much the same. If you're looking for something cheap on eBay or whatever, your three best friends are going to be the Logitech C920, C922, and the Logitech Brio. Now, the Brio is in 4K, which this is actually in 4K, which might be surprising because 1080 videos tend to look a bit better than this. But, as you'll soon learn, that's not really much to do with anything in terms of quality. One thing I do want to touch on, though, is there are some tropes that you'll hear about if you look into the rabbit hole that is video production. You'll often hear the quote that audio matters far more than video. And you might laugh at that and say, sure, yeah, that's good coming from you, Mr. Fancy Equipment. But let me just prove a simple point here. If I switch over from this nice mic you're hearing now to the mic that comes with that camera right there, yeah, it's pretty bad, right? And so it's only now probably hitting you how bad this assault on your senses is. It was actually fine with just the video. It's the audio that's really going to hurt. Right, so let's switch back away from that. Ah, there we go. Much nicer, much nicer. And see, people will put up with bad video, providing there's good audio. Bad audio, that's not going to fly. Anyway, so this is our baseline. This is me plugging the camera in directly and doing nothing to it. Now, let's switch over to my XLR camera, which is a price bump from, this is around $150 to about $3,000. Let's have a look. Ah, isn't that much better? This now feels a little bit more respectable as a camera. You know, this is the kind of stuff you want if you're doing YouTube stuff. None of that cheap, horrible looking webcam. So, I lied to you. This is actually still the webcam. This is just the difference between the out-of-the-box settings and a little bit of tweaking. It's kind of surprising, right? You're sort of expecting a webcam to always look cheap and then high-end cameras to always look good. Well, it doesn't work like that. It entirely works based on your understanding of light and settings. So in this case, by default, most of these cameras have a gain setting that's cranked all the way up because most people use cameras in a dark room. And at the end of the day, all cameras, for the most part, work by capturing light. And the more light you provide it, the better quality image you're going to get. So you've also probably heard the cliche that it's all about lighting. Well, there you go. It's all about lighting. In this case, I'm offsetting the lower quality camera by pumping in so much light that it's nearly blinding me. It's hard to demonstrate here, but trust me, this is an uncomfortable amount of light pointed at my face, but that's the trade-off. Now I still manage to get a good quality sort of picture. And you can get lights that will do the job for about €100. So between the camera and the lights, that's about 250 euro, and you can get something that looks pretty good. And like I said, this is nice high-res 4K. Now, all of this is to say, this is even before we've done color grading or any kind of styling. This is just the raw image out of the box. And to show you the difference the light's making, if I turn off the lights, there's one, there's two, there's three. So all of that grain and noise is from, well, there not being enough light. And if I just turn on the ceiling light, that's what my room looks like, just lit up normally. To me, this is perfectly visible and fine, but obviously to you, it's quite dark. That's because the camera has its exposure set quite low so that it is requiring a lot more light to function. And completely separate note, we haven't even talked about the effects of the lighting itself in terms of getting an image. Like this probably looks spookier than it did a second ago compared to something like this, which is a bit more normal. And that comes down to 3-point lighting and how you approach it. But again, we're going to stay on topic here and stick with just camera quality. So there you go. There's your starting premise that a webcam can actually look fine. This isn't to say that you can't get a better image out of a DSLR camera like the Sony a7S III that you're currently looking at me on. One of the benefits would be this blurry bokeh effect behind me. So why would you care? Well, so the way bokeh works in general is it's down to how the camera is focusing. It's the focus depth, and there is a lot to be said about different lenses and different focal lengths and various pros and cons. Suffice to say, though, in a lot of circumstances, we're only focusing on one thing, and our eyes are going to be drawn naturally to the thing that we're focused on. So when you're doing something like a talking head style video, having a nice soft focus where the things behind you are blurred out and the things that you're looking at are focused in looks more appealing. And so there's that sort of subtlety that makes everything look a bit nicer. Which of course then leads into the topic of color grading, or as I like to call it, movie magic, where you probably didn't notice, but this isn't a very natural looking scene. I've already graded this footage. So if we take that away, you'll see what I'm actually recording this footage like. This is not quite log, but it basically means that you record with as much of the light as you possibly can so that you have the most dynamic range. This basically means that you can mess with the darkest darks and the lightest lights afterwards in the kind of color grading process. And because of that, I can do stuff like this, or this, or even this, and get varying different looks just from the camera output. And what's cool is OBS can apply these live, and that's why the camera footage that you normally see on the Sunday show that we do is actually this raw footage, but graded with this LUT. So there you go. Now, I'm not going to bother going and grading all the other footage and the webcam and all that, but take my word for it. Getting the good quality footage out of the camera is part of the battle. And then once you've got good, clean footage with lots of light, you'll have a much easier time doing a bit of color correction, changing up the saturation, doing a bit of color grading, and getting a really nice image. The takeaway for today is if you are going to get into doing footage or recording or something, make sure that you got a good mic. And I recommend looking at the difference between condenser and dynamic. I'll probably make a video about that later. And also get good lights. In my case, these are the Elgato key lights. You can use any lights really, but you basically want something bright. And have a look at 3-point lighting. In my case, that is the two here, and there's one above my head. Again, I might go into that topic later, but yeah, this gets you started. Right, catch you on the next one.